Most people who start an eBay dropshipping store get stuck at a couple hundred listings, make a few sales a week, and then ultimately end up quitting. Not because the model doesn't work, but because nobody showed them the actual roadmap. So in this video, I'm going to be showing you the exact scaling roadmap that I personally use on my own eBay store. This includes how many products you should be listing per day, when you should be at the 10,000 listing mark on your store, when to convert your eBay account, when to upgrade your store, and how to get all the way up to 25,000 total listing. And I currently have multiple accounts that are at that 25,000 listing mark, and later in this video I'm going to show you the exact profit and real numbers that those stores are doing. Everyone on YouTube tells you to list more products and to list better products. Nobody actually gives you the real numbers. That stops today. And I've also put the entire day-to-day listing blueprint as well as the scaling roadmap in the description of this video, so feel free to check it out. It's totally free. So this is the entire roadmap to scaling an eBay store the right way, going all the way from 0 listings all the way up to 25,000 listings. And the goal is to do that in roughly 5 months. And I have an entire roadmap here that I'm going to go through in this video to show you the exact step-by-step process to get to this point. But first, let's go ahead and do an overview just so you understand kind of the major checkpoints of what's going to be happening with your store. So obviously, we're going to be starting with day 1, and there's going to be no listings yet up on your store. And from there, you don't want to jump right into it and start listing hundreds of products every single day. You want to start off by ramping up your volume. That way you don't get flagged. But then you eventually work your way up, and by day 80, you should have 10,000 total listings done. So it should take you around 3 months to get 10,000 listings onto your store. And then after you hit 10,000 total listings, you should be checking your selling limit. If it's high enough, you're going to go ahead and scale all the way to 25,000 total listings. And you can continue ramping up your listing volume at this point, because at this point in time, eBay trusts you and you have a few sales and feedback, so therefore you can scale a bit quicker. And you should be hitting 25,000 total listings around day 140, which is around 5 total months from starting from 0 listing. And then after you max out your listings on your store, you should go ahead and move into the optimization phase where you're recycling bad products and putting in new products. I'm going to explain all of these steps a lot more in detail throughout this video, but just giving you an overview now. And to recap, it's going to take us 80 days to go from 0 to 10,000 listings. And then from 10,000 listings to 25,000 listings, it should take us around 60 days. And so you go from 0 to a fully maxed out store in roughly 5 months. And so what we want to be doing if you have 0 listings on your account is you want to kind of ramp up. You don't want to go straight to listing a ton of products each day, just so you can kind of warm up your account a little bit. So what I like to do is the first week of opening up a new account, or if it's your first week of listing, you go from around 5 items in day 1 to 60 a day by the end of the week. So by the end of week 1, you should have around 215 listings up. And make sure you stick around to the end of the video, because that's when I'm going to explain the optimization phase, which is where the real money gets made. And so after week 1, you're going to continue ramping up how many listings you're doing each day, and you should be working your way up to around 100 products per day. And so I like to stay at that point of 100 products every single day up until when I hit 5,000 total listings. And it's best to stay consistent with this and not miss any days. That way you can make sure to hit these marks as soon as you possibly can. But after I hit 5,000 listings on my store, I'll go ahead and push my listing volume up to 150 products a day. So it's safer to increase the amount you're listing per day, because you're less likely to get flagged by eBay, since you already have a selling history. And so then if you continue doing 150 products a day after you hit 5,000 listings, you should be at around 10,000 total listings on your store by day 80. So that's the first checkpoint. You want to make sure you're at 10,000 listings on day 80. And I use a tool that I built to automate this process. I'll go ahead and show you that later, but let's go ahead and talk about the markup you should be using. So the way I like to think about it is there's kind of 3 main phases here. And the first one is the 50% markup phase. And this is what I would recommend doing right off the bat once you start listing your first items. And the reason why I'd recommend doing a lower markup like 50% is because earlier on, when you don't have sales yet and you don't have feedback, you want to start building up a selling history on eBay. That way they trust you a bit more. And that way buyers trust you more as well, because you're going to start building up feedback, since a lower markup is going to yield you more sales. However, 50% is not the most optimal long term, just because your margins aren't going to be too high. But you're definitely still going to make a profit on these items, and it's going to get you some sales flowing in. And that is the markup I will use for the first 10 days. And then when I start listing on day 11, as I'm continuing to ramp up my volume, I'll go ahead and increase my markup to 80%. And at this point in time, you may already have a few sales, which is perfect. And the 80% markup is going to give you a lot higher profit margins and allow you to kind of transition into more of a strategy of making more profit per order rather than trying to sell as many items as you can. you obviously want to sell a ton of items, but you want to make sure that your profit margins are high enough as well. And the strategy that I like to take personally is I'd rather make more money per sale than deal with tons and tons of orders that are making me like a few cents. And then days 11 to 16 will be the 80% markup phase. And then on day 17, I will increase my markup indefinitely to 100%. And at this point in time, your account should have some momentum. And you're probably wondering also, will 100% markup even work? That seems crazy. That's literally double the Amazon price. And that makes sense when you think about it. But the truth is that you're listing so many different products from Amazon that there's going to be some items in there that still are a very reasonable price. And, on eBay, a lot of buyers just look for items. And if they see a price that kind of makes sense to them right off the bat and seems within the reasonable range, they're just going to go ahead and buy it. So they're not really price checking on other sites necessarily or comparing, across all different platforms. There's a lot of people who natively only shop on eBay, and they're willing to pay this higher amount for the convenience of it. And the 100% markup is going to yield you very healthy profit margins. And as you're listing thousands of products at this markup, it's going to start to compound. And then one thing to touch on as well is your sourcing price. So what I would typically recommend is doing $15 to $50 in terms of what items you're sourcing from Amazon. I wouldn't go for the super high ticket stuff. I've kind of found that medium range is perfect because it allows you to still make a good amount of profit while also capturing a lot of sales because, the price isn't super high. So when you're looking for items on Amazon, I'd recommend searching within that $15 to $50 range. And then obviously it's going to be marked up for a higher price on eBay. But that range on Amazon is typically the sweet spot that I've found. Okay, now let's go ahead and talk about eBay store upgrades. And so to explain what these are, essentially what an eBay store is it's a feature on eBay that allows you to list more products while not having to pay insertion fees. And by default, if you don't buy an eBay store, after you cross over 250 listings, you're going to end up paying insertion fees, which means every time you list an item, you're going to pay a fee for it. And this is because eBay automatically will give you 250 free listings per month. But after that point, if you want to list more, and the most optimal way to do it is to list more than that, you're going to end up paying an insertion fee. eBay stores allow you to essentially avoid that fee and get listings for free. So the blueprint here is to list your 250 free products. Then after you hit that point, you're going to want to upgrade to the basic store, which is $28 a month. And the basic store will give you access to 1,000 total listings completely for free. And then once you hit those 1,000 listings, it's now time to upgrade to the premium store. And this premium store will take you all the way from 1,000 listings to 10,000 total listings completely for free. It is $75 a month, but in my opinion, totally worth it. And you're going to save so much money because if you don't buy an eBay store, you're going to end up paying around 30 cents on every single listing. But with the premium store, after you hit 1,000, you just go ahead and buy that. And then you can list up to 10,000 total items on your store completely without any fees at all. And I'd always recommend buying the monthly fee for this just because you want to be flexible, be able to change your plan if you want to. Okay, and so now let's go ahead and talk about the wall and kind of the first roadblock that you may hit on your account. So I first want to explain a concept that's very important when you're scaling on eBay, and that is the eBay selling limit. And so by default, when you make an account, eBay is going to assign you a limit to how many items you can list, as well as the dollar amount of items you can list as well. This means you can't really list an infinite amount of items, but you still can list a ton of items on your account if you play it the right way. And so most of you who are making an eBay account from scratch, and this is kind of what I would recommend, is making a personal eBay account, not a business one off the bat. And once you make a personal eBay account, typically what I've seen is that eBay is going to give you around a $50,000 amount selling limit and then a 5K item limit. So this means you can list 5,000 total items, or you can list up to 50,000 in dollar amount. And this dollar amount figure is essentially all of your listings and their listing price and what that adds up to. So with 50,000, that means your inventory listed on eBay can't exceed that $50,000 mark. And like I said before, the range I recommend listing in is around 15 to 50 from Amazon. And if you're using that range, you probably will most likely hit your selling limit at around 1,000 to 2,000 listings if you made a personal eBay account. So at this point, if you're 1,000, 2,000 listings in, you may think, oh, I can't list anymore because my account is fully maxed out with the selling limit. That is not the truth at all, because there's actually a way to instantly increase your selling limit and unlock more listing slots. And that is through changing your account type. And so what I would recommend doing is after you hit that selling limit, which is normally 1,000 to 2,000 listings in, you want to go to your account type and convert it from a personal account to a business account. And the way you do this is by going to your account settings up here on the top left of your store, and then going down to where it says personal information. And then there's going to be a section called account type right here. And this account is a personal account just because I haven't needed to upgrade the selling limit yet. But what you would want to do once you hit this wall is you would click edit here and you would simply convert it to a business account. So what this does is by converting your account to a business account from personal, it's going to instantly increase your selling limit. The reason why is because obviously eBay is going to expect businesses to be listing more products and they need that higher cap. And you don't need an LLC or anything registered at all. Simply what you're going to do is convert it to a business sole proprietorship account, which basically means you're just operating a business under yourself. It's totally free to do and no paperwork is required. And after you go ahead and convert it to a sole proprietorship, eBay may ask you for some more information just to verify your identity. But at that point, typically what I'll see is a 10x in selling limit. So an account with a $50,000 amount limit and then a 5K selling limit will typically jump to around $500,000 in dollar amount and then also a 50K item limit. And this is going to unlock so much more listing space and allow you to scale to that 10,000 listing mark with ease. And as you continue to list and sell more products, eBay will naturally start to increase your selling limit as well. And so you might be thinking that 100 products a day, that's a ton of products. How am I ever going to list that many? And the truth is that it is pretty hard if you're doing everything by hand to list that many products a day. You definitely can do it and you're able to list that many if you spend a lot of time on it. But what I use is a tool that I personally built. Just want to be fully transparent with you guys. I built a software called Dropanion, which pretty much automates most of the processes on my eBay account, and one of those being the listing. And this is what I use to be able to list this volume of items. And again, it's not mandatory at all, but it just helps you kind of scale quicker and get more items up faster. So I'm just going to show you a quick demo of how it works, just my exact workflow. And so what I do is just open up the Dropanion Chrome extension I have here. Then I'll go to my auto lister section. I have some links already in the bank that I found from the product research tool. But if you want to get more information on that, that's another process in a different video. But I have some links that I'm able to list onto my account, and all these are going to be from Amazon. That's what I typically run my stores with. And so all I'm doing from here after I have some products ready to go, and normally I'm working my way up to 100% for the markup, and then I'll do my promoted ad rate, which essentially affects how much your items get pushed on eBay. Promoted ad rate is just kind of how you're promoting your items and giving them an extra boost. You don't have to do this, but I typically go with like 5% here. But essentially you're just paying whatever percent you put here after you sell the item. It's not like ads or anything. You're not running anything up front at all. You're just paying a small percentage of what your item sells for that extra boost and a higher chance of it selling. And then for the links to list, let's say we're doing 100 per day. We're maybe in that phase where we're doing 100 products. So we'll go ahead and put in that figure there. And then simply from there, we're just going to click the start listing button. And it's going to open up the Amazon tab for us. So like this cordless vacuum here, it's going to scrape all of the product information, copy over the title, description, all of that stuff. Then it's going to go ahead and open up the eBay form. And so it'll open up the eBay listing for us and then fill in all of the information required for it to be listed. So it'll first fill in the photos. It uses a template here to make it look a bit better and stand out. So it'll fill in the photos and then it's going to go ahead and move down to the title here. And then it'll fill it in and kind of optimize it for eBay. So it'll fill it in and replace it, make it look more optimized. Put in our SKU, which is like our tracking system for items. And then it's going to go in and fill in all the important details here. So like the brand, the type of item, the model, kind of the features with the item, just anything that eBay wants us to fill in to give us a higher boost in the search results and help buyers find our items. Then it's going to fill in the description as well and then mark up our price to whatever we set it at. In this case, it was 100%. It's going to fill in our ad rate and then it's going to go down here and then list the item. So after it submits the item, it's going to move on to the next link in the queue. And we told it to list 100 products. So it'll go through all of the links that we have in our bank until we hit that 100 listing mark. So basically I'll just run this before I go to bed or like sometime when I'm not on my computer. It'll kind of go through hands off and list as many products as I want it to. Okay, so at this point in time, we've gone over how to scale your store from 0 to 10,000 listings. And after you hit 10,000 total listings, you kind of have a decision to make here. So always what I would recommend to you is listing as many products as you possibly can. But like I said in the previous step, eBay does assign you a selling limit, which means there's a chance you can be limited to how many items you can list. But for the most part, 90% of accounts will be able to get 10,000 listings, no problem. But ideally here, your selling limit, you want it to be high enough to keep pushing past 10,000 listings. And most accounts will have a limit that's high enough to go to the next step. But in some cases, you may be limited to 10,000, but that's not really an issue because that takes us to our optimization phase, which I'll talk about in a second. But I just want to reiterate here, the store subscription is different than the eBay selling limit. Those are two totally different things. An eBay store subscription is simply the amount of items you're able to list without paying insertion fees for free. And then the eBay selling limit is just what you can go up to in total, no matter what, on your store. And if you're playing this the right way, you shouldn't have any issues, especially if you upgrade to a business account. That's going to increase your selling limit, and then it allows for the premium store to actually make sense. But let's kind of go over what you do after 10,000 listings based on what your selling limit actually is. And so what you're going to want to do is once you hit 10,000 listings, you're going to want to check what your selling limit actually is. And because this can change all the time, depending on how many sales you're getting and certain internal metrics that eBay looks at, you don't want to base your decision off of like if when you're at 1,000 listings or 2,000 listings. You want to make sure you're at 10,000 listings and then eBay has naturally raised your selling limit. And so you check what your limit is exactly at 10K listings, and that determines this next step. And so for most accounts, the limit eBay sets for the amount of items you can list, that's pretty much going to be irrelevant, and it's high enough to where this next scaling step will make sense. But the thing that normally holds people back is the dollar amount selling limit. And this is because you're going to reach your dollar amount selling limit a lot quicker most of the time than the actual limit on how many listings you can do. But if your selling limit at this point in time, after you've already scaled up to 10,000 listings, is $1 million or above in dollar amount that you can list, that is the green light to this next step. And you might be wondering what the next step is, and that's going all the way from 10,000 listings to 25,000 total listings on your store. With the $1 million selling limit, this allows you to still list within the optimal range and get to that 25K listing amount. And kind of to break down the math, if your selling limit on your eBay account is $1 million, meaning eBay will let you list inventory worth up to $1 million in total. If you have 25,000 listings on your store, that means you kind of have to be listing around that $40 price point for your items. And that's still a very reasonable range and sustainable long term, and honestly within that optimal window. So if your selling limit is $1 million or above, you should have no problem getting to this 25K listing amount. And the issue with scaling past 10,000, if your limit is below $1 million, like let's say your selling limit is maybe 500,000 in dollar amount, then you're just not going to be able to get to 25K listings. And that becomes important here is because the next eBay store, which is called the Anchor Store, allows you to get to 25,000 total items completely for free. The Anchor Store is like the premium store, except it's what takes you from 10,000 listings to 25,000 listings for free. And if your limit is below $1 million, you're going to have to list items that are so low in price to where it may not make sense because you're not making enough profit per sale. And also too, if your limit is too low and then you continue listing past 10,000 and you're using the same price range for items that you originally were using, you may not be able to use up all those slots and you may be stuck at like 13,000 listings or like 15,000 listings. In that case, it may not be worth it for the increase in price you're paying for the Anchor Store. I'm going to go ahead and explain this more in depth here in a second when we move on to this actual phase 2 of scaling. But I'm going to also give you the scenario where your selling limit is below $1 million. After 10,000 total listings on your store, if your selling limit is below $1 million in dollar amount, then you're going to want to hold at that point because it's not worth it yet to scale past that because you're going to have to list items so low to where the profit just won't make enough sense at this point in time. And so what happens is at this point, when you're staying at 10,000 listings, that's going to go ahead and trigger the optimization phase. And this is where essentially you can stay at the same amount of listings on your store, but make more profit day in and day out. And this is honestly where the money really starts to get made because you're not only relying on listing volume to get more sales. But the nice part is once you're holding at 10,000, maybe you're optimizing your account, you can always keep checking your selling limit. And there's a good chance that eBay will naturally increase it as you sell more items. And you will eventually get to that $1 million mark, and then you'll be able to scale to 25K. But if it's not there yet, it makes sense to hold at 10K and go into the optimization phase. I'm going to explain this fully in depth at the end of the video, but let's go ahead first and talk about the scenario of phase 2 of scaling, which is if your limit is high enough to take it to the next level. Okay, and so going from 10,000 listings to 25K in total should take you around 60 days of listing. And the reason why this is a shorter amount of time, even though you're doing more listings than the previous step of 0 to 10,000, is because we're going to be listing more products each day. And that is because at this point in time, after 10,000 listings, our account is already warmed up, has some reviews, has sales, and eBay trusts us a bit more. Therefore, we can scale accordingly. But one super important thing to note though is before you go over 10,000 listings at all, you want to make sure you have the Anchor Store. And so up until this point, if you're below 10,000 or at 10,000 listings, you're going to most likely have the premium store, which gives you free listings up to 10,000 in total. The thing is though, if you start to go past that 10,000 mark, then it's going to start charging you for insertion fees. And I know with the premium store, we said it gives you 10,000 listings a month, but that's actually kind of untrue. And the way eBay labels their actual stores are a bit misleading. With the 10,000 you get on premium, that means you get 10,000 total listings because your listings renew every single month. So you're realistically only getting 10,000 a month if you're deleting old listings. But if you're staying at that mark and scaling past it, then it's going to keep renewing every month. And if you want to scale past 10K, you're going to 100% need the anchor store. And this allows you to scale from 10K to 25K listings without having to pay any insertion fees. You get to scale pretty much for free after you pay the store amount. And so the anchor store is going to be $349 a month, which may seem like a lot of money, and it is a decent amount of money, right? But the thing is it's 100% going to be worth it, and you will for sure make it back. If you're doubling your listings or even going more than double, right? If you're going from 10K to 25K listings, then your profit is going to significantly increase, and it will 1,000,000% pay back the $349 subscription. Because if you don't buy that, you're going to end up paying 35 cents per listing, and it's going to cost you a lot of money. So let's go ahead and talk about like the game plan of how many products you should be doing a day and kind of what price range. So what I'll do on my own account is after I hit 10,000 listings, I will increase the amount I'm doing to 250 products a day. And up until that point, if you follow the scaling roadmap we laid out before, you're going to be listing around 100 to 150 products per day to get to 10,000 items. But after 10K, like I said before, your account is already warmed up fully and you have sales and feedback. Therefore, you can bump it up. And typically what I'll go to is that 250 mark. And this allows us to go from 10K to 25K listings in around 2 months. But one thing you do want to keep in mind of that is really important here is what you are listing your products for. And because eBay limits the total amount of dollar value of the items that you have listed in your store, you don't want to just be listing super high priced items and not looking at your price at all, because then you're not going to be able to hit that 25K listing mark. You may be able to get away with it if your selling limit is super, super high. But like we outlined in the previous step, if your limit is around $1 million amount, which I will typically see for most accounts after they hit 10K listings, then you have to be mindful of what you're listing products for, because if you're not, then you're not going to be able to maximize that full 25,000 listing slot. You're not going to be able to fully fill in those 25,000 listing slots. And you may get blocked out at like 15,000 items or even below that if you're listing items for too high of a price. So what I recommend doing is if your selling limit is around $1 million amount, you want to tighten your sourcing cost to around $15 to $25 from Amazon. And what this means is after you apply your markup, and what I recommend is the 100% markup, which is what I use on all my stores. At that point, if you're using a $15 to $25 range for Amazon products and you're using a 100% markup, that means you're going to be listing products anywhere from $30 to $50. And what falls right in the middle of that? $40 does. And $40 is an important number because that should be your average listing price after you're scaling past 10,000 items. That should be your average listing price trying to scale to 25,000 items. And the reason why is because that'll allow you to fit in all 25,000 items into that $1 million amount limit. So just keep in mind when you're scaling, try and list items around that mark. Obviously, every item doesn't have to be exactly $40. But if you mix in like some $30 items, some $50 items, it's going to average out to around that amount. You're still making plenty of profit on those items, and you're definitely going to make more profit getting more listings up and maximizing that 25,000 amount you get with the anchor store, rather than trying to go for more high ticket products and then maybe getting held up at like 13,000 or 15,000 listings. Also too, let's say early on, maybe as you were scaling from 0 to 10K listings, you have some high priced items in there. And let's say maybe you hit your account early on, like let's say you're stopped at like 18,000 or 20,000 listings. It's not the end of the world. What you can do in that case is just go and delete the higher priced items on your store, and that'll free up space. So once you max out, let's say like maybe you bought the anchor store, right? You're scaling, you're stopped at like 17,000 listings. In that case, you're just going to want to free up some space. You'll go into eBay, filter by the highest priced items, and then you can delete some. And then that'll fill in space for these new items to go in. You can always lower your sourcing cost too if you think your limit is increasing too much and you're not going to be able to get to that 25,000 listing mark. But all in all, 15,000 more listings should take you around 60 days if you're doing 250 products every single day. That is the roadmap I would recommend. 80 days to get to 10,000 listings, and then 60 more days after that to go all the way up to 25K listings. And so now we're going to go ahead and talk about what comes after 25,000 listings and what comes after if you're stuck at 10,000 listings and your limit doesn't allow for it. This takes place once you've maximized the listing slots on your store. Like we talked about before, some of you may be held up at 10,000 total listings if your selling limit isn't high enough, or if you listed all the way to 25,000 listings. Typically, that is where accounts will max out at. But either case scenario, once you are maxed out and you're kind of stagnant, you're not able to list more products, that's when the optimization phase kicks in. And so now you guys might be wondering like what an actual account looks like at the 25,000 listing mark or at the 10,000 listing mark, kind of what sales you can expect to make and the amount of profit. So I'm going to show you here two of my personal accounts, one that's around 25,000 listings and then another one that's around 10,000 listings, just to kind of give you an idea of the type of profit you may expect. So this is one of my eBay accounts right here, and it's a little over 25,000 total listings. We can go ahead and take a look. In the last 90 days, I've done around 68,000 in total revenue. Last 30 days have been 25,000. Last week, I've done around 6,000 in revenue, and then every single day, as you can see here on the daily chart, it's right around, 700 plus. Some days are better than others, but it's pretty consistent now because I have so many listings up. But I've hit days of even $1,500 and more than that. But it's averaging around, $700 to $800 per day. Obviously, that's not profit, but with the high markup that I'm using, the margins are really high and I'm able to retain a solid amount of those sales. And so I want to be super upfront and show you exactly what the profit is like. So here is my profit dashboard that's built into the Dropanion tool that I built. And it shows all of my, average profit per order, the revenue I've done. Obviously, you can see these numbers like the revenue figures on the eBay Seller Hub, but this shows more in depth into my actual profit figures rather than just revenue. And this month I've done 3,600 in profit. It is the last day of the month. It is the 30th of July. So we're just rounding out the end of the month here. And this account did 3,600 in total profit. And my monthly revenue was 21,000. So I'm retaining around 20% of what I'm selling items for. And I've sold around 300 items this month and making around $13 on every sale. And that $13 figure is kind of something I really focus on. And that comes though with the markup that I use. A lot of people get this wrong and they mark up their items super, super low and they make maybe like $1 or $2 on each sale. But I really try and stress a higher markup and making more profit on every sale, because that way you don't need as many sales, right, to make the same amount of profit. So that's kind of a glimpse into the 25K listing account. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you a 10,000 listing account as well. And so this account right here is the closest one I have to 10,000 because on most of my accounts, the limit is high enough for me to continue scaling to 25K listings. This one's sitting at right around 13,000, but the results are going to be similar to 10,000. It's only 3,000 more items, but I kind of just started scaling this one past 10K listings. So I feel like this is a pretty accurate depiction of kind of what you can expect around 10K items. So I'm going to go ahead and show you the numbers that this store is doing. So the last 90 days, we've done just around 17,000 in sales. The last month, around 6,000. Last week, around 1,600 in sales. And then every single day, if we look at our daily chart right here, it looks to be around 200 per day. Obviously, some days it spikes up and some days it's lower, but that'll start to even out as you continue listing more products. But it's roughly around 200 in revenue every single day. And same strategy on this store as the other one that's at 25K listings, using the same markup of 100% and the same kind of scaling strategy. The only difference is that this one has half the listings as my other account. So you kind of expect the profit to be lower. And if we kind of dive into the profit figures here, this account is at 1,200 in profit this month, and we're rounding out the end of the month here. The profit per order is a bit lower because I've been doing some kind of lower ticket items on this. And the revenue this month is around 5,500. So yet again, I'm at around a 20% margin. So for example, every $100 I make, I'm retaining about 20 of that in profit. So 1,200 profit on the month. Average profit per order is $7, a bit lower than the other store, but I'm listing a bit lower priced items on this account. Still a very, very healthy margin, and selling a good amount of items. Have sold 150 this month, so right around 5 items per day. But as I start to scale up the store and list to that 25K amount, I only expect this profit to keep going up. And so I call it the optimization loop, and this is how you're going to increase your sales, increase your profit without needing to list more items. Obviously, the easiest way to actually get more sales is just to list more products, but you get to a point, like we said, where you're maxed out, and then you want to optimize, and this essentially means taking products that aren't working well, so old products, and then deleting them from your store and listing better products in. The nice part about it is that either way, if you're stopped at 10,000 listings or you're stopped at 25,000 listings, at that point you have so much data and so much selling history to where you know exactly what sells. You can maybe notice patterns yourself after you fulfill orders. You kind of start to get an idea of what types of items sell on eBay. And also you're able to export your sold data, and then you can upload it to AI tools like Claude or ChatGPT. And then it'll actually tell you what items are selling best and give you recommendations purely off of the exact data and what's selling on your account. Basically, the main thing to take away is your store data is going to tell you exactly what your store is good at. After you list products at first and you start to sell items, you build up that selling history, you're going to have repeat categories, you're going to have certain price ranges that do better than others, as well as certain markups that perform better. And when that happens, you're able to go in and then see, okay, these items are doing better than, most items on my store. And that's exactly what you'd want to keep listing onto your account. I'm going to show you here in a second an example of this on my own account and kind of the tools I use to find these winning products. But let's go ahead first and talk about kind of the daily cycle and how you actually optimize your store each day. So what I'll do after I have my account maxed out is the first step is to go in and delete the oldest listings you have on your store with 0 sales. This effectively is getting rid of stale items that have been listed for a while, don't have any traction. And those are items that really have a low chance of selling. So you'd rather list new products in there to give new ones a new chance of selling that are already proven. And so what this looks like in practice is I'm simply going into my listings tab here, and then I'm going over to the start date and I'm reversing it. So that way it filters to the oldest items on my store. So that's kind of the first step here, is having the older items. And then what you'll want to do after that is there's one more filter, which is our sold quantity filter, because obviously we don't want to get rid of items that have already sold. So we want to go ahead and click this one as well. And that's going to show us items that have never sold that have been listed a long time ago. So as we can see, this item here was listed last year, and all of these items are, and they don't have any sales. So in this case, these would be good items to delete. That way I can free up some space for more listings. So I would simply just click on the bulk actions here. I can go in, click actions, and then I can click end listings, and that'll get rid of all 200 of those items at the same time. And so after you've deleted the 200 stale items on your store, you're going to go in and relist new products, right? Because we don't want to ever drop below whatever listing amount we're capped out at. So like whether or not we're at 10,000 total or 25,000, we never want to go below that, because we always want to make sure we have the maximum amount of listing volume on our store. Just going to give us the most chances to actually sell items. That's why we do this where we delete items, is to free up space for these new listings coming in. And so we'll be relisting these new products every single day. And those new products, like we talked about, are going to be based on what your winners are, doubling down on those, figuring out what's selling well, and then listing those products in. That way you can increase your sell-through rate. And for me, that's just a matter of going back to my auto lister here and then listing new products. But a key rule is you never want to delete a listing even with one sale, because after an item gets a sale on eBay, it has so much higher of a chance of selling again. So you want to maximize the items that have already gotten sales. And one other thing to note here is that every new listing you do, it's going to have fresh exposure. eBay's algorithm tends to favor items that are newly listed, tends to give them a shot and kind of promote them a bit more, put them higher in search. So that by itself, just listing new products in general on your store, is going to give you a boost and allow you to sell more products, simply because eBay's algorithm is favoring those new items you're listing compared to the stale listings that are sitting there on your store. And so now I want to go over an example of this on one of my own actual stores and kind of show you the process I would use to go ahead and optimize the account, find what's selling well, and then listing more of those products. And so this account right here is at 24,748 listings, right around that 25,000 listing mark. And that means that I pretty much can't go above that based on what my selling limit is, because it's capped at the $1 million selling amount. So in that case, I'm just going to sit at this amount of listings right around 25K and then optimize from there. And what I've noticed on this account is I end up selling a lot of car parts, car accessories, replacement parts, things of that nature. And that means that I'm going to want to list more of those products, because it's something I've noticed like through fulfillment on this account. It's a big pattern I've noticed selling these car parts. So that's something I would probably want to look into doubling down on and listing more of on my store. For example, like this mirror cover here, we have this carburetor kit. We have this like truck fan right here, like phone mount for a car, all these different just car parts and accessories here. So that's something that I would want to look into listing. And here's kind of the process I would use to go ahead and find more of those items. And so for me, it's a matter of using my software tool that I built, the Dropanion tool, to actually go ahead and find products based on these keywords for me. But if you're doing this by hand, you would just simply go to Amazon and you can start looking up items that you may want to list. So like, for example, if I've noticed like this mirror cover here has been selling well, I can go ahead and look up mirror cover, and that'll give me exact listing ideas basically that match what I've been selling. Or what you can do is kind of look up more of a broader category. So like, let's say I just want car parts in general. I can go ahead and look up car parts here, and then it's going to go ahead and give me a ton of different options I can choose from them. That's a good way too, if you want to kind of figure out these specific items that work well, is you can choose items within a specific category and then figure out what sells well within that category. But the tool I built kind of automates this process. And what I'll do is when I'm trying to double down on winners, let's say for example, I have car parts right here. I can simply go in, put in the keyword called car parts. I can simply go in and put in that car parts keyword or category, and then I'm able to choose how many results I want for it. So let's say I want 100 car parts to try and list on my store. Go ahead and put in 100 here. Let's say also that the data is showing on my account that tools are selling well, like tool repair kits and just tool sets in general. I may want to go ahead and try those out as well. And so what I would do is just simply go back here. I can look up tool set as another category here and then choose the results I want. And normally I'll be doing like 200 refresh listings every day. So let's go ahead and do 100 for this. And then from there, I can simply go down here, select my price range. And if I'm trying to stay at 25K listings, I want to do like around the $40 price point. That way I don't exceed my selling limit. So I'll go ahead and do 15 to 25 for the Amazon range here. I can do my review count. I typically do like 20 to maybe 500 here. And then for minimum star reviews, I'll do 4 and up. And then max delivery days, I don't want anything that's going to take more than 7 days to ship to the buyer. So I'll keep those settings there and then click the run targeted search. Now it's going to go ahead and start searching for these items on Amazon for me. Like I said, you can do this by hand. This is just the tool I built to automate it. So it'll go through now and try and find me some car parts and tool sets. So as we can see here, it's going to populate on the right. And what it's doing is just opening up the Amazon tab and scraping all the information based on what we put here in the search results. And then it's going to return those links here on the right. That way we can easily list them. So it looks like it's done here. It collected all 200 items. And then for this, all I would do next is click the add selected to lister button. And then it's going to add those to the items we already had existing in our queue. And then I can go ahead and list those to my store. It's showing 3,700 here because I already had some links in my queue. I just added those from the targeted search on top of it. And so that is the entire scaling system I use on all of my eBay stores, and the scaling system that I would recommend to anyone out there, even if you're a complete beginner and you have 0 listings on your store. In my opinion, this is the best way to scale an eBay dropshipping account in 2026 and allows you to make the most of your eBay store. So just to recap, we're going to start off with 0 listings. We're going to ramp that to 10,000 total listings. At that point, we're going to check our selling limit, see if it's at $1 million. If it's at $1 million in dollar amount or higher, we're going to go ahead and push all the way to 25K listings. If your selling limit is still below $1 million in dollar amount that eBay lets you list, you're going to go ahead and sit at 10,000 listings and move to the optimization phase. But if your limit is high enough, you're going to go ahead and push all the way to 25K total listings. At that point, either way, if you max out at 10,000 or 25,000, once you've hit your selling limit, you're going to go ahead and start optimizing forever. What that means is you're taking out stale listings that aren't doing well and you're relisting new products that have already performed on your account, essentially doubling down on winners. And to be fully transparent here, Dropanion is the tool that I built, and it's what I use on all of my eBay stores to automate the time-consuming parts of it, like the listing and finding products. That's what I personally use to scale my own stores, but you can start by hand and you can do a lot of this that I talked about by hand. But if you're just starting off and don't want to invest in a tool like this, that's totally fine. You can do a lot of this stuff by hand. And as you start to scale and make some money from it, then you can choose to move towards a tool like this if you want to. But all the things I described in this video can be done by hand. It's just a matter of executing the exact strategy. And I have a full day-to-day blueprint and scaling roadmap telling you exactly how many products to list each day, and then knowing whether or not it's worth it to scale past 10K listings. If you want access to that, it's in the link in the description. It's totally free. It's just a link you go to. It's going to show you the exact roadmap and kind of what we've outlined in this video. I also have a free Discord in the description as well. And if you join that, it's going to show you exactly how to set up your eBay account and get your first products up on your store. That's also completely free just to get you started with everything and make sure your eBay account is set up correctly. And I also have the Dropanion tool linked in the description as well if you were maybe interested in checking that out. In addition to that, I have my Calendly link linked as well. You can go on there and then book a call with me completely for free as well. Whether or not you have questions about getting started or scaling your store, I'm happy to answer, and you can book a free call in the description. But I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch this video, and make sure you stay tuned for future videos about eBay dropshipping and how to make money online. There's going to be a lot of cool stuff coming out soon.